Alright, welcome back folks. Sheepdog Smokey here, and this is another Shed Talk. I'm calling all my videos that right now. But this one is one I've been looking forward to for a few weeks. It is my review of Superman Red Son. And be warned, there are spoilers ahead. Before we get into that, please remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you're part of the channel and able to make sure you're up to date with all new content. Again, I'm doing the giveaway at 500, 1,000, and 1,500 subscribers for 1, 2, and 3 books respectively. We'll talk more about that at the end. So, I'm going to be reviewing Superman Red Son, although the spoilers won't begin for a short time, but if you haven't seen it, I would say stop now. That said, Superman Red Son is a comic that's been around for some time. Alternate universe is not anything new to Marvel or DC. We've seen stories where, Superman landed in Nazi Germany, or Germany 25 years before the Nazis took over, and served the Nazis. We've seen the CW with Crisis on Earth X, where Supergirl was a Nazi, trying to kill her counterpart from another dimension. We've seen alternate universes where anything and everything can happen. And it's something they use for basically their what-if scenarios. What if Captain America never went into the ice? What if Superman landed in Russia? What if Supergirl never showed up on the planet? All of these things happen. And they use the alternate universe moniker to explain it. I remember just a short time ago, a week or two ago, I saw something, I believe it was on Twitter, someone saying that DC got woke, watch them go broke, because they claimed Red Son was something produced to bolster Bernie Sanders. And nothing could be further from the truth. This was produced, the comic this is based on, only 20 years ago. Or at least I think it was roughly 2000 that this version of print came out. Either way, Superman Red Son is not a new story. It was certainly not written and produced and made to bolster Bernie Sanders. If anything, it damages the socialist mantra. And it proves that Bernie is wrong. So we'll leave that where that is. Running over just a basic timeline of the movie. The movie opens in roughly 1945 or 46, I believe. Superman is about 12 years old. So he landed in the early 1930s. This is a bit of a departure from normal canon for his origins, which would be that he landed in 1939, or roughly thereabout, just by a couple of years. 1939 is when Action Comics #1 came out, and it's basically when we see a roughly, I believe, 2 or 3 year old Superman on Earth, although the cover is an adult Superman hammering a car into a rock. Now, of course, this canon has been retconned multiple times. With the television show in the 1950s, that was canon. As the movies in the 1980s came out, he was roughly 30, so he would have landed in the town of Smallville in the 50s. Superman Returns is supposed to have been a complete sequel to the last Superman movie, and then we get Man of Steel completely retconning everything, where he lands in Smallville in the 1990s. So the dates are all over the map, but this one has him landing roughly 1934 in Soviet Russia. This would have been prior to World War II. Growing up until he was about 12, he would have seen what happened in World War II. He would have then had the propaganda from Moscow and the Kremlin for roughly a year. And then at age 12, his powers begin to develop. This is normal canon. He's not really Superman until about 12. And Man of Steel kind of did that, where he's in middle school and his powers begin to develop. The only difference here is, instead of Martha Kent helping him to embrace his powers and control them, we have Svetlana a friend of his, a young girl, who tells him he must give his powers to the state and he must serve the people. We flash forward to the 1950s, and he is serving Joseph Stalin. He is a true puppet of the state and ultimately meets Lois Lane Luthor, who proves to him that the gulags are real and the oppression and the extermination of people is real. He liberates a gulag and kills Joseph Stalin and takes over as premier of Russia. From there, it jumps in time to I believe the 60s or late 50s or the 60s, with the Korean War, where he ends it in 3 hours and reunites Korea under the Soviet banner. Ultimately, the Warsaw Pact nations all fall under his rule. We get the 1980s with Brainiac, where he defeats Brainiac and reprograms him, although Stalingrad is lost. And ultimately, we come to the late 1980s, maybe early 1990s, I don't know, with President Luthor. This is something that they've done multiple times. Although I will say this one is quite a bit different. Normally, Luthor ascends to the presidency by basically just buying it so he can oppose Superman. This one, he comes to power by working with the government. He develops superior men, basically a clone, who he ultimately destroys in the battle with Superman, and then ascends to the presidency, and Superman is just following in Stalin's footsteps. He is using Brainiac to control people who are dissidents and who he deems a danger to the party. Notice that line, danger to the party. This is true Soviet Russia as if it had never fallen in the late 1980s, early 1990s, where the party rules the country. Now, under his rule, as you see in the movie, that they do have lifespans going up, birth rates going up, suicides going down, production up. All of these things are wonderful on paper until you look at how they happen. We ultimately get a fight with Batman where instead of using kryptonite, he uses lamps to recreate a red sun. Wonder Woman ultimately breaks with Superman completely as he's unwilling to even listen to her. Short fight with the Green Lantern Corps because Luthor retro-engineered the Green Lantern ring, which is foolish if you know Green Lantern lore. Ultimately, though, it comes to that Brainiac was not reprogrammed and is going to pretty much destroy everything he can to rule the world. Lex and Superman work together. Superman flies Brainiac's ship way off into space so many black holes don't destroy the Earth. Lex retires from the presidency, and Superman is still there, just in the background. All of that said, it is not in any way in support of socialism, because it's not showing socialism. It's showing communism. And that's where socialism always leads when it has any human being running the show. They always begin to believe that, well, I'm running this. If I wasn't here, it would collapse. I deserve more. It always ends up with them deciding, you're a danger to the country, so we must eliminate dangerous people. Always comes to that. We saw it in communist China. We're seeing it again. We saw it in Cuba. We're seeing it now in Venezuela. We're seeing it all over the planet. We saw it in Germany with the National Socialist Party. We saw it in Russia. It never works because human beings are fundamentally flawed. This ultimately shows socialism corrupted Superman, and only with his supposed death and now the dissolution of the Soviet Republic and Lex promising to aid the people of the USSR and bring them into a global United States, it shows that power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. Even at the end, Lex is basically saying he's going to do what Superman tried to do. There are shades of every identitarian politics thing known to man thrown in. Superman shows up after saving Metropolis, and he says something about the benefit of all men. And of course, Lois Lane steps forward and goes, what about women? Luthor chooses an African-American vice president. Now, granted, in this situation, they don't play it off as identity politics. James Olsen is an African-American U.S. agent, not Lois's photographer, and works with Lex very closely. Now, Lex, I'm sure, had it been a white man, a Chinese woman, it wouldn't have mattered. Lex had played Olsen for decades, so he knew how to work him. That's why Lex chose him as a running mate. That's all there is to it for the character of Lex Luthor. But I still stick to, this is a definite refute of socialism and communism. It shows originally Stalin with the gulags and the extermination of those he deems unworthy or dangerous to the party. It shows Superman unwilling to kill, but he brainwashes and then ultimately 100% controls anyone dangerous to the party. He flat out tells Batman, before Batman kills himself after the fight, a bit of brain surgery and a nice job in a Moscow laundry. It is a fate worse than death, honestly, for those who truly believe in liberty. For those who truly believe in freedom, having your mind controlled is worse than death. And that's what Superman was doing to those he deemed dangerous. It could be no further in my mind from praising socialism. It ultimately, to me, is two things. It is a nature versus nurture argument. This, if I remember correctly, is still Lara and Jor-El's son. It is still the same Kal-El. He just landed many thousands of miles across the planet in Russia in the same era, mid to late or early to mid 1930s. Grew up, gained his powers, was told give the powers to the state instead of use them to help the common person. And nurture took over. It is also the epitome of power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Superman was angered by Stalin, killed Stalin, and became the premier. And ultimately did the exact same thing, just looked different on paper. Ultimately, it leads to the same place it always does, with a tyrant falling. In this case, the tyrant didn't die, he just appeared to. But I've talked long enough. Let me know what you think. As always, remain civil. We're not here to scream and yell and hurl insults. We can have a discussion like adults without any issue. As always, please remember to like the video, share it so we can expand the conversation, and also so the channel grows and we get to the giveaway points. The 3 books are 1984, Brave New World, and Fahrenheit 451. The 500 subscriber winner will receive their choice of 1 book. The 1,000 winner will receive their choice of 2. The 1,500 will receive all 3. I know I have very close family who are subscribers. I'm not going to choose one of them. They've all got the books anyway. So I will make sure that it is someone who is not so close to me I've already bought them the books. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day. And as always right now, stay safe and stay calm. Right now is not the time to panic. Right now is not the time to freak out and hoard supplies. We do need to be logical about this. As with any medical issue, that is new. It takes time to develop a vaccine. It takes time to develop treatment. So, maintaining some social distance, not attending too many concerts or movies, or going out into large gatherings, or even minimal to medium gatherings, might be a bit smart. It's logic. If you can't avoid the crowded areas, be safe. Wash your hands regularly. Don't touch your face any more than you absolutely can. All of those things. Be careful, and I'll see you next time.